This is a show that brings to the forefront newsmakers, entertainers, and those making a difference in our lives and in our world. Each week is a new adventure with topics ranging from the most serious and cutting edge to the most lighthearted and entertaining.
This is Taking Care of Business with Richard Solomon.
Greetings, everyone. Richard Solomon. We got a great show today. We're going to talk about the serious business of comedy. Yes, this is a co-production of Taking Care of Business, My Father's Place Radio, and Out of the Question. So I got two really funny guys. I got Rob and Scott. All right. So it's Rob Falcone?
Yep.
All right. And Scott?
Schendlinger.
Schendlinger. Okay. A pleasure to meet you.
Nice Irish kid.
So you guys are going to be performing at My Father's Place.
Oh, yes.
All right. That's really cool. Part of the Long Island Comedy Festival or just something unique to...
Yeah, it's a Long Island Comedy Festival showcase, they're calling it. And it's, I think, the first time they have a comedy at My Father's Place in a long time.
Oh, let's put it this way. It's funny. One of the things that I do is I do radio shows and little promotional pieces for My Father's Place. And I know that some of the comedians that they helped launch included Andy Kaufman, Billy Crystal, George Carlin.
Oh, boy. Back in the day. Back in the day, My Father's Place was great. I mean, the music. I used to go see the Good Rats there years ago.
I was just looking up Mickey Marcello's phone number just before the show.
It's funny because Bruce Springsteen used to play there before he was Bruce Springsteen. Before he got big.
It was known as the Bruce Springsteen Band. And one of the bands he opened for was the Paul Winter Consort.
I saw Paul Winter Concert years ago at the old Fillmore East.
Wow, now that's a classic venue. That's
there's been a few good groups that played there.
Just a couple. All right, so let's talk about comedy. So first of all right. So what did you guys grow up on? Because I grew up on Milton Berle, George Burns, F. Troop, Bugs Bunny, the Marx Brothers. I thought that really gave me a great sense of humor that I don't necessarily see in media today. What was
I agree with you. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I'm a lot younger than you guys, clearly, because I know those names vaguely. I grew up on...
You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Bill Burr, Greg Giraldo, Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock. Those are more what I grew up on when it comes to comedy. So I can't really speak on what you guys are speaking on at all, because I don't know that time.
I'll give you a piece of trivia that has never been revealed to the public. Many, many years ago, I used to work for a law firm, and Greg Giraldo worked with us at that law firm in Manhattan.
Yeah, he used to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
So he worked. We worked on Park Avenue, and he was one of the people there. So I knew
him
way back. But I never knew him as a comedian. I only knew him as
he was a very good one.
Yeah, I only knew him as as an office coworker and a very nice guy. Very nice.
Well, Richard, there's a lot of, believe it or not, this weekend I worked with two comedians who were lawyers. There's a lot of lawyers that were, that turned comedians.
So there's hope.
Yeah, there's hope yet. Well, you know what? I think, what it is? They have to get rid of the guilt of being a lawyer so they become comics.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Also, lawyers are very smart people and hard workers. And a lot of times comedy takes intelligence and hard work. So you find that drive that is needed for comedy.
Well, that's why I'm a lawyer. I used to be a brain surgeon before I got into comedy. Yes.
I'll tell you one thing. I found that the effective use of comedy is actually phenomenal in trials, but you have to be very careful on how you use it.
Yeah, I would guess so.
but if it's effective, you could break up a lot of tension. I remember. I'll give you two.
I could see that. I could see how you could even win a jury over a little bit more when. You have a little bit of levity, a little bit of comedy, because it shows a kind of personality that you're attracted to.
Well, I gave an opening statement for a jury trial last year, and one of the things that I said was, do you know how on television the police come in, they do the forensic investigation, and then after the last commercial, the case is resolved in an hour? I said, that's not happening here. And I said, this is going to be
that's great.
I said, this is going to be a boring, dry, invoice after invoice, he said, she said kind of case, and it's going to be long. We're going to need a lot of patience, so it's not like TV. But I thought, I had to do something to become personal with the jury, other than this is a case about
That's cool though.
So,
ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if you're expecting Matlock, forget it.
Right, he's booked.
Yeah.
So Scott, if you didn't grow up with the classic golden age of comedy, did you ever watch it on YouTube or the DVD series?
Not really. No.
All right, that's it. I gotta hang up. I can't talk to an inexperienced like
I can't
this.
say I have watched. I mean, as a kid, I watched whatever was on TV. I watched old Seinfeld stuff. I've watched some old Carlin stuff on DVD and seen the movie King of Comedy and some of those things. But I saw Marx Brothers or whatever one they did. Who's on first? I've seen those DVDs.
That's Abbott and Costello. Yeah.
Abbott and Costello. Yeah, same thing. Or not clearly, but. No, I haven't. I watch. No.
Now, growing up, did you ever go to stand-up shows yourselves as audience members and going, "Wow, I want to do that"?
No, I didn't. I don't know if Rob.
No, I never did.
Wow.
I wanted to be a comedian. I mean, I was typical class clown in school, never achieved anything, and was brilliantly funny and very clown-oriented and stuff. And everything to me at the time was I wanted to be a comic so bad that looking at other comics kind of depressed me because I wanted to be there so bad, so I would never go.
Now, was comedy, this is for Rob, was comedy your like social media? Like, did that help you kind of become a little bit more popular?
Well, I was the guy. I was the funny guy growing up, in school. Teachers didn't care for it as much, but some did. And in my group of friends, I was but believe it or not, and I'm sure this is, you could say this with a lot of comedians, that I had some friends of mine that were funnier than I will ever be, but that's just being them, They didn't do it as a profession. They were just we grew up with some funny guys, and it was fun to be around them and, that kind of atmosphere. I grew up I'm sure, I watched the old Ed Sullivan Show. I mean, I grew up with all the great. I had every Bill Cosby album when I was a kid.
Well, I'll tell you this. I when I was young, my next door neighbor said, "You've got to come with me to see Buddy Hackett at the Westbury Music Fair."
Oh, well, that's priceless.
Let me tell you, I laughed so hard that as I was laughing from one joke, I would miss another joke because the guy was hilarious. I mean, the guy was just hilarious.
Buddy was one of a kind.
He was interesting because he kind of came out into the audience a little bit. He was hilarious. He used non-FCC compliant words, but it was okay because it was done in a funny way.
He was the best joke teller. I mean, and storyteller, and dirty, and so lovable. That he was never threatening, so he could say anything because he was so non-threatening.
But the thing is, he had, you could actually see him being the voice of a cartoon character too, even though I think he did that. There were movies.
It's funny. You're right. I'm surprised he didn't do more voiceover work. Maybe because he was so distinctive in his voice.
But it was his delivery, It was
priceless.
So how do you guys practice what you do to see? Like, how do you try out material?
I have a full-length mirror in the house that I stand in front of with cardboard cutouts of audience behind me, and I create a little comedy club in my living room with cardboard cutouts of people and lights. And because you know why? I have no life. I'm lonely. See, Richard, I'm lonely and I need a life. No, I'm only kidding.
So how do you try out new material? And how
do you want to take this, Rob, or me? It's up to you.
Let's go with Scott. How do you try out new material?
Go ahead, take it, Scott.
I do a lot of open mics. You just sign up and there's no pressure. But now I just do it at shows. I just if it I'll just throw it in there, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, something else will work, and they won't remember that it didn't work. I like to try it in the beginning because they don't know you yet, so you haven't won them over. So if it works in the beginning, then it should work elsewhere. And I just try it at shows. Not usually if it's super. There's different levels of shows. Like there's shows that aren't as important. There's certain shows where you're expected to do a certain way, and there's other shows where there's not the same pressure based on pay and all this stuff. So obviously if it's a big show or something like that where I need to do great the whole time, I'm not going to try anything out. I'm going to do what I know works. But, shows that not all shows are like that. So when it's not a show like that, which a lot of shows aren't, then I just try it out. And the worst that happens is they don't laugh, and then you try it again next time, and then again next time, and again next time, and again, and again, and again.
Now,
usually what comics will do is during the week they'll try to get stage time to work materials. So by come the weekend when you're doing a more important show, you have it somewhat down and you want to enter it into the set. So, during the week and in showcase clubs, you're doing 10, 15 minutes tops. But, when you do a weekend, you might do a half hour. I do 50 minutes to an hour. It's like, so. But in the beginning, that's what you do. You try to get as much stage time during the week, which is usually non-paying shows. And then when it comes to the weekend, you go, oh, okay, good. I got this new bit. I'm going to enter it into the set. And
Now, it's funny. Musicians, when they go into a venue in the afternoon, they'll do the sound check. What's the equivalent for you guys? Because there really isn't like a sound check. There really isn't like a comedy check.
No, just walk in, they check the mic, and you're done.
Right, but
check the mic and make sure your fly is up.
Yeah. There is none of that. There's no.
You have to make sure that your fly is up. So that's one check that we have to do.
But what do you do to kind of get in the groove and get the feel of the venue?
I take a half a Xanax and a big fat joint, but that's me.
I don't do it.
That's just me. I mean,
do it. Just go there and do it. But everyone's. There's so many people have different ways of approaching how they do it. Some people will look at the room and tailor their set for the room. I might see a room, and if I go into a room and it's all people who are between 20 and 30, or a college where they're 18 and 22, or a room where everyone is over 50, then I know I have a good idea of what not to say, so I won't say what I know not to say. But that's about all I'll do. Is if I see a crowd, I might, you can kind of know by stereotyping them based on their age and things like that, what they're not going to like, what they're not going to relate to from experience, and I just personally will leave that out. That's all I do.
Did either of you guys grow up on Carson or Carson reruns or anything like that?
Oh, hell yeah.
No, I'm 33.
No, he's still.
Oh man, I loved it.
I grew up on Carson Daly. He has a late night show, if that helps.
Yeah, there's a big age difference between me and Scott. I grew up on the Tonight Show every night. And as a matter of fact, I love
Jay Leno and Letterman.
Well, what's interesting is if a joke didn't really perform well when Carson delivered it, he actually was able to kind of grab the whole moment and still make it funny.
Sure.
Whether he would kind of pull the boom mic down or he would, kind of like make a remark about the writers. So I don't know.
Sometimes your comeback lines are funnier than what you've said.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, now
that only works that works on like a show like that where it's quick. He's only doing his little routine for, I'm assuming, 5 minutes. But if you're doing a long set, you get away with that once or twice. And then they're like, all right, now you're just not funny. So, I mean, you can do like 1 or 2 or 3.
That depends on the personality of the comic.
Yeah, some people are, they have the
Some comics are much more rigid and will not go that direction, Other comics, it's the personality of the comedian that will get them out of danger when a joke fails or whatever.
Now, speaking of personality,
the thing is to not be so damn serious and make fun of the fact that it didn't work.
So, speaking of personalities, did you guys have anybody in your families that were funny or inspiring in a comical way to you guys growing up?
Well, I mean, my grandfather was kind of funny, but he was silly. And my dad was.
I had very funny people in my family. We were Italian, and my father, my mother, my uncles, they were very funny. There was always laughter.
Now, do you draw upon that to create some of your humor for today?
Well, believe it or not, I think it helped me in having my natural timing. Because I'm going to tell you something. You can't teach comedy. You could teach someone to hone their craft, but but you can't. It's like in music. If you're tone deaf, forget it. And you have to be born with a little bit of timing and comedy inside you. You can't. You can only hone a talent. You can't teach it.
Yeah, I actually believe that because it has to be kind of shaped.
It has to come from the inside,
right? Because you have to actually want to do it, and I guess you have to overcome.
Oh yeah.
You have to overcome. If you're an introvert, I guess it's hard to be a comedian because if you're shy.
I don't know.
Well, that's funny you mentioned that.
They're great comedians. It's some people that are so shy off stage, and they won't talk to anyone, and then they get on stage, and it's like that person who stutters all the time, and then you see them sing, and they don't stutter at all. They have whatever it is, and it goes away. So with comedy...
Yeah, but they can't be taught that. What they come out of their alter ego comes out, that's natural. That's them. Nobody taught them to be that.
I can't really speak on... I don't know what people... I know that I wanted to do it, but I don't know. I don't know how that would work. I don't know if people... I'm sure you can... you see people go to comedy classes, and a lot of times they'll do it because they think they want to do it, and then they just stop.
Well, a very good friend of mine who's been on the show, his name is Robert Grayson. He hails from Australia. He actually teaches comedy, his comedy workshops. But I probably have the feeling that he has people who are sort of poised already, and he just brings them up. I have a feeling he just brings them up.
I remember years ago when I started out and doing the open mics, there were a lot of people there doing the open mics and wanting to become at least a little bit better as far as a comedian, not wanting to do it as a profession, but their businesses sent them to do it because they were salespeople and they were people that dealt with the public. And this would have enhanced their introvertedness. They would become much more extroverted and much better salespeople and much better PR people and such like that.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people take comedy classes because when I was in college, I created a comedy club, and I had them pay for me to take classes at a comedy club. And I remember a lot of people there didn't want to do comedy at all. They were just there to become better speakers or whatever it was.
Yes, they enhance public speaking. Yeah,
to help out because it gives you the ability to talk to a group of people, and there's a lot of benefits to it. That really help. That's why sometimes you'll meet people that have been salespeople. Like I know someone who used to be a salesman, and then he got into comedy, and he just had all the skills he had from sales actually work perfectly in comedy, and it was great for him. So you can also take some of those skills you've had.
Yeah, usually those people sold ice cream from a little truck.
All right. Well, speaking of
brushes out of a valise.
Well, speaking of commercial breaks, we have to take a break right here. We're with Rob and Scott. We'll be right back. Keep it here with Richard Solomon and Rob and Scott. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is the Great Thordini. You're listening to Richard Solomon on 88.1 FM WCWP.
All right, Richard Solomon laughing it up with Rob and Scott, the Long Island Comedy Festival. They're going to be at my father's place. So we kind of had during the intermission while we're doing the behind the scenes stuff, you kind of miss some of the funny stuff because these guys are actually
September 14th.
That's right, September 14th at my father's place. But if you're listening to this in the future, which is past September 14th, 2018, this may be history, but then maybe they'll be back so you can catch this, like that. It's like what Jackie Mason says. How does this work? I don't know. So anyway, so you were saying that before, this is Rob, you were saying that before you were a comedian, you were an actor.
Yes.
So let's talk about
I started acting first.
Okay. And so how did acting arise in your life? How did it come about?
Well, you'll never believe it, but it's the truth. I was roadieing for my friend's band at the time, and we were in his rehearsal studio on 8th Avenue in Manhattan.
Was that the music building?
Yeah.
I represent the music building, so that's pretty funny.
Well, my friend, my very, very dear friend, you might even know of him. His name is Mickey Lee. He was Joey Ramone's brother. We grew up with the Ramones.
Wow. I interviewed Monty Melnick, their tour manager.
Monty Melnick, the road manager, of course.
Yes.
I know Monty.
Well, he wrote a book called On Tour with the Ramones, and he was nice enough to sit down with me. Yep.
But anyway, Mickey, when I was sitting in the rehearsal studio after rehearsal that day, and they were sharing the studio with another band. And the drummer of the band said, he said, "Are you an actor?" And I always answered yes. And he said, I'm in the band from Tony and Tina's wedding, and they're casting right now, and you'd be a ringer. I said, really? And with a little coaxing from Mickey, because I was a little afraid still, and he said, now's your time. And I auditioned for it on a Wednesday, and I was in the show on Saturday.
Wow.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And I never looked back after that.
So then what led to what? So you started with Tony and Tina's wedding, and then...
Yeah, and then I started doing open mics, and I started becoming a stand-up, but I kept my acting career still going very well. So I do both. I just finished shooting The Deuce on HBO. I'm in an episode of the next season.
And what kind of acting jobs do you like to do? Or like I have a friend, Jack.
Well, I've done pretty much. I've done a lot of commercials. I've been on all the cop shows. I played every kind of cop there is, Blue Bloods and all of that jazz. And I've done everything from cab drivers to cops to, it's funny because as a comedian, most of my roles have always been dramatic.
That's hysterical. Now, when you did Law and Order, right?
I did Law and Order Criminal Intent.
All right, then you probably filmed at 60 Center Street, which is where, they filmed during...
No, Criminal Intent was being filmed on the pier.
But the outside scenes, the outside scenes when they were on the steps.
Mine was all indoors.
Because they film a lot at 60 Center Street where all the lawyers go. So
I wouldn't doubt it, sure.
Yeah, a lot of times when we go to court, you have to go around the set, court on the set. You can't do this. You got to go around. It's kind of funny because, you'll see.
Oh, I love that atmosphere. Oh, yeah.
And the thing is, the 60 Center Street court is a really old court. It's just old.
Yeah.
It's old looking. And I know
There's
that they
a lot of character.
They use there's like a ceremonial courtroom. I think it's in room 300. It's a big, big, spacious room with some nice artwork in the back, but it's a very big room. And I know that they filmed some stuff in there. So, yeah. So, now, Scott, have you done any acting?
No, I mean, I was an extra in like 2 shows, but never did any acting. No, sorry.
Now, do you have any aspirations to be an actor?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, I always fantasize about being a super movie star. Every so often, when the Oscars are playing, I imagine winning the Oscars. Even though I never acted in anything, I still imagine winning.
And Scott looks great in a tuxedo because he's got black hair and a nice dark beard.
That I could say, I want to be, but I've never done it, so I never took so it'd be unfair for me to say I want to be an actor without putting any of the work in to be an actor.
It's hard work.
But no.
Now, is it achievable to be a full-time comic and earn a decent enough living?
Achievable? Yes.
Okay. Because
I have to. Decent enough living is though in your book as a lawyer. I don't know. It's decent. It's possible to be a comedian and make 6 figures. It is not out of the realm of possibility. To make
you could do cruise ships.
Do cruise ships, and then but it's not easy. I would say a lot of people that I know that have made good money at comedy, they do something with TV or something like that. They'll do specials, but people can do it. But I don't. It's hard.
Do you guys have your own websites? Not Facebook or social media, but actual dedicated websites?
Yeah.
What's your website?
I do. Mine?
Yeah.
www.robfalcone.com.
All right. It's Falcone?
Mm-hmm.
Just for the people driving? Okay. All right.
And mine is superhilarious.com.
Is that right?
It is right.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
You just have to Google my name and a whole bunch of junk will come up.
All right.
Yeah, but it's not good junk. Don't read into all the other articles you see about
Hey, listen, I paid good money to get that junk on there.
There's Reputation Defender,
I mean, come on. It wasn't easy to get these credits. I paid a lot of money.
Now, as far as the competition from other media sources, YouTube, satellite radio, I don't know, television, Do you find that makes it harder to get people to pay more attention to you, or does it prime the pump and people want to see good, funny people live and in person? Where does that?
I think what it does is I think it helps a young comedian today has a great deal of venues that he doesn't need to have anybody okay it. He could just go and showcase his work on all of these channels, and you could pretty much sell yourself a lot easier today than you used to be able to. Today you could put your stuff out on YouTube. You could put your stuff out on, and, promote yourself. And you got the podcasts, and you got all of these things that get you out into the media a lot easier. When I was doing comedy, we didn't have any of that. You had a VHS tape that you sent to somebody, and you hoped they looked at it and not taped the football game over it.
Exactly.
And so I think it's really, for young comedians, because that's the whole key to be successful in comedy is when you're young, when you're in your 20s and early 30s. You'll never see a comic in his 40s go on the Tonight Show or any of the late shows and say, this is my first time. It's a young career to grab. You could maybe get through it in the back door, but, the media, the networks, they're looking for new, young comedians. They might necessarily have to be funny, but because nobody knows what's funny anymore, this perfect example is what's being shown. And but I think it makes a young comedian a lot easier to sell himself with all of the media and all of the stuff.
Now I don't know.
I would agree that all the new forms of media, new ways to get your name out, makes it a lot. It's different competition though, because anyone can do it, and it can be hard to be found. But to my knowledge, it used to, and I think I'm correct that you needed, like you said, somebody had to put you on TV to get you to the next level, or put you somewhere. Now you just put yourself. You make
exactly.
Put yourself online.
Exactly.
People are making. I don't know if you consider but people make very good money now just having, just Instagram. People are making a living just having Instagram posts, podcasts.
Yeah.
People are making a living off of or supplementing livings, and they're becoming names and YouTube, and then there's characters. It's obviously different. It's a different way. They might become big before they're comedians. That's like you said. It's all
today because of what. Today, what you could do on a computer today, even in the film industry, now young filmmakers are able to set up their own editing, and they could make some incredible independent films, without having to, deal with a lot of the business end of it. They're creating and they're putting it out there, and it's the same thing with comedy. Like Scott says, you could do a comedy set in a club, put it out on YouTube, promote yourself, put it out on all the other venues, and if it's good, people will, you can't hide good comedy. A lot of these comics don't realize that they're not funny. That's why they only have so many hits and whatever.
Well,
and when there's talent, it's going to show, it's going to come forth, and it's going to be recognized.
Or just something that young kids like that they'll, that advertisers can jump onto, because that's what.
Yeah, well, I think young people today, though, are a little ridiculous. Don't eat detergent pods. Don't sniff.
I think that's passed.
Cinnamon.
I think I think that's passed. I don't know.
Now what they're doing is jogging alongside their car while it's moving.
Yeah, that's new.
Well,
it's always something new and stupid.
One thing I've noticed is that
stupid stuff that we did was sneak into somebody's pool at night in the summertime, but today they take it to a whole different meaning.
The internet, they would have been doing the same stupid stuff. They just didn't have the chance. That's my generation, though. I'm not that generation. That's the younger generation than me.
One thing I've noticed is that, at least on the television I remember seeing long ago, there were an army of comedians You know, you had Lucille Ball, and the Lucille Ball show was funny, and Carol Burnett was funny, and you know, you had the Dean Martin roasts, and you had Carson, and they were genuinely funny without brutalizing people or politicizing stuff.
Oh, we had the best.
And that seems to have truly disappeared. Why?
Yep.
Have we just become an angry country? Is that the...
No. Well, you know, I think it's just like any generation that changes. They don't want to be like the last one. They want to be new, and they want something that they feel they invented and that it's their style. And
yeah, I agree.
You know,
just people.
You know, but you know what? But what's sad is the one thing you can't touch is the simplicity of comedy. And you start screwing around with that, it's not funny. And the topics that I see young comedians use, there's no delivery, and you know what? They'll call me a hack because I have the delivery and the jokes, and they're funny. You know, it's so sad that only another comedian calls another comedian a hack.
Yeah,
an audience person never will call a comic a hack because they're usually laughing.
Yeah, comics can be a little bit. There's a lot of times with insecurity, though. I think I can't speak on everyone, but I think a lot of times people, they just, you know, if someone does well and they're not doing well, so you just feel a little bit, you know, insecure, and they might lash out. I can't speak on everyone on that, but I can agree.
Well,
it's
their defense mechanism.
Yeah, you know, but I do agree with him that, you know, the younger generation is just, you know, it's something that's been done. They want something new. But then again, you know, look at fashion. You know, it gets finished, and then something new comes about. But then a couple of generations later, the new thing is something that was from before, and it comes back around, and it's just, and everything's so the internet's so new. People are being just thrown so much stuff in their face now, so it becomes more and more difficult because you're becoming desensitized. And
well, yeah, I think that you take an old comedian and put him in a comedy club today, he probably won't do well. You put a younger comedian in a club today, to me, if you're making that audience laugh, then you're doing your job. And that's the key thing. No matter what you are, no matter how old you are, when you walk out onto that stage, those people want to laugh. If you make them laugh, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
And there's just a lot of different audiences now also. So, you know, like I said before, like if I'll see an audience, I'll know, I have an idea of what not to do. Like you can literally, it's not usually things that some things are just, people say funny is funny. That doesn't really, the people don't relate. If you don't relate to something, you don't relate to something. If you can't bring someone into your world because they just don't relate to you, which happens because a lot of us are just so culturally different, income, race, whatever it is, just where we grew up, and you just can't put yourself in someone else's shoe. And maybe there's a few people that are so talented they can put anyone in their shoes and make them. But realistically, it's so there's certain rooms and certain audiences that just you see such a huge difference. You can go to certain like very hip areas in Brooklyn and have a completely different audience than, you know, somewhere in Long Island or somewhere in Harlem. You know, you just get completely different audiences where the same jokes might work one place, they won't work at all, and they just don't relate to you. They don't have nothing to do with you. It's just, I don't get this. It doesn't. It's like watching a movie that your 9-year-old or 7, 8-year-old might find hilarious, and you're like, I don't get it. And there's just things that they have, you know, that they think are funny now, and they relate to through their experiences.
But unfortunately, those people are not working anywhere. Those little sets that they do on Thursday nights and these showcases, and they're making their own type of the kind of people that they hang out with laugh. They're not going anywhere. If you look at the comedians that are successful today, it's because of they do have that quality that is necessary. Jim Gaffigan, all of these comics that Bill Burr. You look at, they're real funny. Their material is good, and they have a style that will project out to the masses. And there's 92 million little clubs that open up that do comedy at nights, and these people that are attracted to them, and that are doing comedy, they're doing it there because they'd never be able to work in a real comedy club.
I guess, I don't know. I think if you go to a place and people, it's just there's different markets for things. There's certain restaurants we like, and I don't call one restaurant not a restaurant, and then the other restaurant a real restaurant because I like it more. It's really just people have restaurants they like. Some people, love fine dining, and they think McDonald's is disgusting, and then some people love McDonald's, and they think, some fine dining is disgusting. They're both restaurants. People are paying to go to them. People are enjoying them.
All right.
It's just different markets for different people.
All right,
And then there's those people that are incredible that can, or there's people that can go from multiple markets. It's it's a huge, comedy's huge in certain sense. It's huge in the sense it can be, there's so many different markets, just the internet and everything. There's just so many different places that you can perform, and also in the same time, so few places.
Well,
wait, hold on.
Question,
We have to take a
Richard.
quick break, but I'm going to ask you this question on the other end of the break, and the question will be at the end of the break. Are comedians fun to hang out
with? Is this
with?
the last break?
No, this is the last break right now, so we'll be right back.
Okay.
We're at superhilarious.com, robfalcone.com, Rob Falcone, but FALCONE.com, and we'll be right back. Richard Solomon, Taking Care of Business, My Father's Place Radio, and Out of the Question. We'll be right back.
This is Russell Hitman Alexander from the Hitman Blues Band, and you are listening to Richard Solomon on WCWP 88.1 FM.
Richard Solomon, welcome you back to a funny hour of radio. I got Robin Scott with me from the Long Island Comedy Festival, who will be appearing at my father's place in the village of Roslyn at the Roslyn Hotel. And their websites are robfalcone.com, pronounced robfalcone.com, and superhilarious.com. So check them out. I'm just enjoying the heck out of this
Super
show.
Hilarious Lee.
Oh, Super Hilarious Lee.
No, I'm kidding.
Lee?
Yeah, enunciate the E.
Super
Hilarious. There's no
Lee.
E there, is there?
All right. So, Rob, you had you had a dangling participle or something that we didn't finish.
Yeah, I just wanted to sum it up when you asked about can you make a good living, can you make a living in comedy? See, that's the whole thing. If I set out to want to make a living in comedy, and when you take that kind of approach to make a living in comedy, you have to get more serious. You have to develop an act. You have to. There's there's all of these little places that open up that do comedy, but the people in them are pretty much just satisfying their own need to want to go, do stand up. They're not pursuing a career in comedy because you'll never get it that way.
So the question is it if you're the king of your own neighborhood, is that good enough?
I guess it's
in order to make a living in comedy, you have to be pretty versatile. You have to be very funny, and you have to appeal to the masses, not just to a certain clique that lives in Brownsville, or I'm only funny in Harlem, or I'm only funny in I could only do redneck. Like even comics that have a character that they play, like Larry the Cable Guy and all of these, they reach out to the masses. That's how they fill the seats.
Yeah.
They're not so restricted to just doing, I'm so dark. A lot of comics, they want to be dark. They want to be, I'm so cool and I'm so this. And it's not funny, though. That's the only sad part about it.
Well, Andy Kaufman was dark, and he would fight with people. I don't know.
Andy Kaufman was a king of that.
Those are always the best of the best. For all the best, there's so many that aren't the best.
But, you're talking about a time where his dark was just incredibly funny. It was satire. It was...
but it was dark. It was dark.
Some people that are still dark and still, but the whole...
Well, I don't know if you could call an imitation of Elvis Presley dark.
Yeah, that's the thing also.
Or mouthing the words of Mighty Mouse.
No, I'm not talking about that, but like when he would actually fight with people. That was...
Well, no. How about this? How about the fact that he had his partner used to be set up in the audience to heckle him so he could have a fight, and he would go... He would like to test the envelope. He would like to take it to another place. It was all choreographed. It was all, his mind was a genius.
Yeah, but the living term is such a, like I said, it's all, it's such a, it's such a, when you say living, everyone interprets that so differently. Some people say, if I make $30,000, I know people that would say $30,000 is enough to live on. Lots of people. I think the average income in this country, I think middle class is $40,000, but other people, say $100,000.
Well, a comic is like an artist. You might not make much money, but you have to do it. Comedy isn't something that you choose to do. You have to do it. It's an addiction. That's how it is. You don't care that you got holes in your shoes. You got a stage time. You got dates in your calendar. You got, that's comics are weird.
That's why, like he said, it's that young man's game is that when you're young, it doesn't matter if you don't have money, but once you get to that certain age, it's
Well, yeah, and if you haven't made it at a certain age, you're really not going to make it.
It's it's true. How many people of Rodney Dangerfield, I think, made it when he was older. And
yeah, but we're also talking back in the 70s.
Yeah, and then
the triple Linden.
I guess would be Mike DiStefano, who passed away. He I believe started at an older age and made it. But it's I can only speak on what I see.
This is something that always took place, though. I mean, even Johnny Carson had the new, fresh comedians that were coming up the ranks on the shows.
It sells. What the advertising.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's what it. That's.
It's business. Watch a movie. You see all these young people. They're all young and pretty. It's just a certain. It's a lot of it's casting what they like to sell. It's just what it is.
Well, what they're selling today is a like to me one of the greatest TV shows, sitcoms was Barney Miller. I mean, and you look at the casting of that compared to the way they cast a sitcom today. It's so pathetic. Today, everybody looks like they work for Ford agency, and it's not real, And I mean, I have never seen so many absolutely stunning female police officers than on TV.
I don't watch too much. I do watch TV, but I watch a lot of Netflix shows and things, which I've seen Rob and many. But yeah, a lot of times you see these ridiculous. Where it's just sometimes you'll watch a movie and you'll just be like, "Oh, these people are pretty," and that's what casting. I don't know, but it seems like a lot of times they just want someone who's just easy.
It's shallow. It really is shallow.
I can put him there because they don't want to do the work. Like everyone, you only want to do so much work, and so it's.
Well, it's the dollars and cents. Today, it's not about how good the script is. How much money can we make on the return of this thing? Let's put somebody big in it, and we don't care how bad the script is, it'll sell.
But I would say if you're trying to get a comedy, you usually don't want to get in it for the thought of money, because if you do get money...
No, in the beginning you don't.
Right away, and it's a lot of times isn't that much. Sometimes it can be nice, but it's definitely for that love of
usually any comic that starts out, money is the last thing they're thinking about. It's just that they want to do stand-up. I never
thought about money, and it's obviously nice and needed, but
I assume there's a tremendous amount of travel and schlepping.
Yes.
Yeah, I used to travel a lot in the early days.
And would you crisscross the country the whole bit?
Yeah, we go to Ohio, Pittsburgh, North Carolina, Florida, all the way up to
Ohio.
Buffalo.
I once drove right before Ohio, wherever is like at the tip of Pennsylvania, near Ohio. I'm assuming near Ohio because there was radio stations from Ohio there. It was like an 8-hour drive, and then drove back that night. You do those one-nighters where.
Oh man, I would never do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was I had something the next day and I had no choice. But it's tough when especially if you're alone. It's lonely, And
then of course there's Vegas. There was always some good places in Vegas to play.
Yeah, Vegas. I performed in Vegas once, but was it some random thing? And I know Vegas used to be, and it still has some big shows there, but it used to be like a big.
Well, I know comics today that literally go all over the country because there are these chains of comedy clubs that they work for.
Yeah.
That are located in all the states, and these guys are making incredible livings.
Yeah, you get a couple of those things, and they have tons of rooms, and you make your, whatever it is, a weekend. That's
Well, a lot of these clubs on the road usually are like from Wednesday to Sunday, or usually it's not just usually a Friday and Saturday. A lot of them bring you in for Thursday to Sunday or Thursday to Saturday. It's almost a week.
You're basically a truck driver, and the product you're delivering is yourself.
Years ago I met this comedian that drove around in a converted step van, like an old UPS truck type of thing.
Right.
And he had it all fixed up, and it was so funny because when you go on the road, you get a hotel room. Usually, they supply you with a hotel room. And he wouldn't take the room. He just asked him for the electric hookup so he could stay in his truck.
That's pretty funny.
But he would live out of his truck. He would do one-nighters to where he would get to his next show for the weekend. And
that's very
I don't know where he is now, but oh my God.
Yeah, that sounds like a band would do.
Yeah.
Now speaking of bands, do you have you guys ever opened for musicians?
I have, yes. I went on tour with my cousin's band, and they went across the country, and I opened for them on a couple of shows, and that's tricky. That's tricky. Like his shows, they were like on like showcase with lots of other bands, so it was in between bands, because music is at a different level. I've gone to comedy shows. I've gone to music shows where there was a comedian before. When I saw Frankie Valli at Westbury like 2 years ago or something, there was a comedian before, and it worked perfectly. That's like a good audience for a comedy show, because they're calm, they're not like drunk and rowdy, they're older and they're patient. But if you go to like a rock show, it can be very difficult because they don't care, they're drunk,
and boy,
they don't want to hear you at all.
It's funny because Scott just answered what comics will face. Like your audience is going to let you know if you're good for them. And when you go to a rock show and try to be funny in front of them, man, is that the worst? Like the wrong audience.
Yeah, just because it's a different energy. Music is high, like louder. You don't need to pay attention to music either. You do not need to pay attention to a rock show. You just listen and dance to the music, and you can have a side conversation. The comedy needs your full attention. If you aren't listening, you miss a part of it. It's ruined. They're not funny. They don't like you. Shut up. Go away. Bring on the band. Yeah. So it takes a while.
Usually they're there to, I remember when I used to go to concerts, sometimes we wouldn't even sit in the seat until the main, band came out. The opening bands never got the attention paid to them because you were there to see like the Allman Brothers or whoever it was. And comics will open up for a big band. The people just want to hear the band. They don't want to, they don't want to hear the comic. We're just like filler.
So in the few minutes that we have left, because this is a blazing fast show, are comedians fun to hang out with? Like if you're in the green room and, there's a bunch of you guys, is it fun to hang out with you guys, or is everybody just so kind of...
I can tell you Rob is very fun to hang out with, and most of them are usually very fun to hang out with.
I'm going to tell you something, and this is right from the heart. This is the truth. The Long Island comedians are absolutely wonderful with each other. They are so supportive to each other. And when you go and work at one of the comedy clubs in Long Island, and it's like during the week where there's like 6 or 7 comics on the show, you only wish that they would tape the green room because of the hilarity that goes on, and everybody is absolutely wonderful. It is.
Well, there's always nanny cams.
Yeah, there is a camaraderie with Long Island comedians that I think is absolutely fabulous. I mean, it really is. It's really great.
Comics are just, sometimes comics can be very depressed. That is part of comedy. There's a lot of depression in it. But a lot of comics are fun. You poke fun at each other. You just have a good time, and you're hanging out with people.
Yeah, but see, I tell those comedians that they have yet to discover the bar. And this is why I say you're depressed because you're not drinking. You're a comic. You need to have a drinking problem, and then both of them work together beautifully. So, just make sure you take the bus home.
Yeah. So I ask musicians all the time, where do songs come from? So where do jokes come from? How do you invent a joke? Is it you just live life and you carry a pad with you and things like that?
I pray to the comedy gods.
Did they answer?
Well, I leave a note under my pillow. I leave a blank piece of paper under my pillow at night. I say a prayer. I wake up, and there's material underneath my pillow. Yes.
You sure that's not Amazon Prime?
No.
Yeah, I would say, like he says, same thing. It's just experience, but everyone's different.
It comes to you.
I can't speak.
You know where I write You know where I write my best material?
In the shower.
When I'm driving to a gig.
Is that right?
And I'm sitting in traffic, or it's like an hour or two drive, and I'm in the car. I think of that, and when I'm watching TV at home, I think of it. I can't sit down and write comic.
Yeah,
I have to get an idea in my head, and then I take it from there. The seed is planted, and then I make it grow.
So
I have an idea, and then I just bring it to the stage and work it out on stage and bomb it until it's good. And then you just have to choose where you can bomb. And then, But
it's funny with a comedy joke. A comedy joke is so crucial that you could start working something out, and you damn well know it's funny. You just it doesn't seem to work yet. And all of a sudden, one night, you might say it with one different word, and all of a sudden it just comes together. And it's amazing how you believe that it's funny, but you haven't yet got the words right. And once that happens, and sometimes it'll happen without you even knowing it, when you're on stage, it'll come out of you one night that way, and you go, oh my God, there it is. That's it. I just got it.
Now, do you guys tape your stuff so that you can listen to yourselves afterwards?
No, I don't watch myself on acting, and I don't listen to myself on comedy.
What about you, Scott?
I try to. I am not as good as I should be, but I do try to, because sometimes I'll listen to something from a while ago, and then I'll be like, oh my, I didn't even remember doing that. That's so fun. The
only time Go ahead, Scott, I'm sorry.
Well, that was it. That was all I was saying. Yeah.
The only time I watch my stand-up is one time to see what it is and to upload it onto YouTube or whatever. But I don't continuously watch my stuff.
All right, we're at the lightning round because we only have 90 seconds. What do you guys?
Can I be George Goebel in the center square?
So, what do you guys listen to on the radio on the way to a gig? Scott, you go first.
I listen to Amazon Prime Music, and I usually listen to the hip-hop elites. Even though I don't really listen to rap music, when I'm in the car alone, I'll listen to rap music. But I mostly listen to pop and like, rock and oldies and stuff like that. But in the car, it's rap music for whatever reason.
All right. Rob, what do you listen to?
Well, this is good because I will never do a road gig with Scott.
Not when I'm with other people, I wouldn't do that to them. I would listen to what they like.
My favorite radio station is, because I'm an old WNEW and WLIR guy, so I like FUV.
That makes sense.
And especially on Saturday nights when you're coming home, and Friday nights at 11, they got the dead hour. And I also love classical and jazz.
All right, beautiful. All right, with that, that's a wrap. So, RobFalcone.com, Falcone, pronounced Falcone.
Okay.
And superhilarious.com, although some people say superhilariously.
Really emphasize the E in the super part.
Exactly.
SUPE.
So catch these.
Scotty, you could always start calling yourself Scotty instead of Scott, and it'll have the E at the end.
Ooh, that's true.
Exactly.
Scotty, you're named after a seafood restaurant.
Or a Star Trek guy. All right, so with that, we'll see you all in a week. Guys, hang on for some post-production stuff.
Hey, Rich, I'm looking forward to meeting you, buddy.
I can't wait. I'll see you all at my father's place at the Roslyn Hotel. And for all you out there,
14th.
Keep laughing because,
8 p.m.
All right.
8 p.m.
Don't be late. All right, see you next week.